Into this night, where do we stand?
This is where we stood coming into the night, 268 to 204, so clearly an advantage for Secretary.
Take a look at these numbers here. 21% say they'll be concerned. 37% say they'll be scared.
2 years ago, the current president, Donald Trump, was voted into office.
It's time.
The night of the election was something a few friends and I stayed up for. The election was a historical night, and it was exciting for us just because nobody knew who was really going to win. So much has happened since that historical night.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together.
One thing that seems to continue to worsen would be the divide between both opposing political views.
To buy a gun in this country.
It's not easy, Geraldo.
Why don't you have man?
The vacancy has ignited activism across the board, particularly among pro-choice groups.
Law enforcement tells CNN at this point they have no reason to believe he was on anybody's radar, and so far there is no explanation for why he would have done this.
This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics.
If I may ask,
Instead of collaborative efforts for change, however, today it seems like there are only two sides to every problem.
the other folks. That's enough. Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President, that's enough. Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask.
So I've grown up in Cortland County my whole life. I grew up in a conservative household, and I've gone to church every Sunday for, well, a long time, since I was young. This puts things in a particular perspective for me, because I have close friends and family on both sides. So I wanted to showcase this perspective by interviewing somebody from the left and the right.
My name is Brian Twitchell, and I am a registered Republican.
Andrea Mathers, and I'm a Democrat.
The first thing I asked them was how they became a member of their party.
My parents were Republicans, and my father ran for a county office seat when I was probably 12.
I didn't know that.
And he had lost. He came in third or fourth out of four, but that made me pay a little bit more attention to politics.
That's an interesting story because I grew up in a conservative family. Most of my family is still conservative and Republican. And when I began in grad school looking at how cultures create power, how they create hierarchies in order to maintain power, and how systems use those hierarchies to their benefit.
And of course, in college, I was part of a military academy, and most of us were conservative, and we wanted to protect and defend our country and the Constitution. So I maintained my loyalty to the Republican Party.
And I think I'm a Democrat because that political party also focuses on how to legislate and regulate systems so that everyone is treated equally.
All right, fair enough.
I think that's what I'll say.
Then, of course, I had asked them how they felt about Donald Trump and the administration.
Yeah, I'm really kind of saddened that he went soft, so to speak, on his promise of building a wall for border security. I think he began to challenge too many outside issues with his reckless tweeting. I think there's times that he's doing things very well orchestratedly, and of course, but a lot of that is tasteless. And in the office of the president, it would be nice to not have to deal with that. But his policies and what he's trying to do, I think, are for the betterment of the working class population.
The two things that I think are most important: the willingness to use racist and sexist language, and the bombastic use of language to incite fear and to enable discrimination is just such a problem. His language, the language that people are responding to, and the feelings, and even actions that it's inciting is really problematic. The second thing, so I mean, against immigrants, like everything that he's ever said about a woman is awful, and no one cares.
My second question was how they felt about the results of the midterms and what they thought the future held for Trump and his administration now that the Democrats have the House.
Well, I think it's definitely going to be harder to get legislative actions done with the Democrats now in charge in the House. In fact, Obama lost. He lost 63 seats, and Bill Clinton even lost 54 seats in his, and they even lost Senate seats. So at least in our case, we gained Senate seats. So it still says that there's a backing out there for what the population wants the president to do.
I think my main concern and my main hope for how the new House can represent my own political commitments and beliefs is really to hold the current administration accountable. You know, in order to hold this current administration accountable, a lot of things might have to come to light, and they might not want that. So I'm skeptical, but that's my main hope.
So a few months ago, there was a controversy with Kavanaugh. There was some allegations of sexual assault back when he was in college. Now, I asked them both if they thought that the public outcry was, one, because they thought he did the crime, or two, because of Democrats' fear of the overruling of Roe v. Wade, or a combination of the two. And that's what they said.
Yes.
You think it was...
I think it's both.
Both, yeah.
I think it's both. I think, I do think there was a genuine concern about his past behavior and whether someone who had committed that behavior was worthy of being on the highest court in the land.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I also think it was a political move. And I don't think that the political concerns taint or disqualify the moral ones. I think a lot of times our discussions dismiss moral concerns because there are also political ones, and I think instead we can combine those and say yes and.
It possibly could have happened, but there were no witnesses. Nobody could corroborate the woman's claims or story, and so I think the right pathway of justice was pursued and the investigations were held, and even the ones who came forward appearing to so-called get on the bandwagon now have recanted. At least 2 of the 3 have recanted their stories and basically admitted that they were just trying to get in the limelight and penalize Kavanaugh for that, just because they've got issues themselves. So no, I think we have to believe but hear and inquire of the accusations when they're made. But then if there's no corroborating evidence, and then take into account how long ago was this?
Innocent until proven guilty.
True, but then how long ago was it?
Yeah.
And do we allow a leopard to change their spots if there's no other professional track record down through the years? And according to all the other 60-plus women that came forward who have worked with him since he graduated from college and became a professional in the workplace, there seems to be no concept of impropriety whatsoever.
The last few years, more and more shootings have occurred. It's unfortunate, but it's not uncommon to turn on the news and find that another shooting had occurred. So I asked both of them if they thought that this was a mental health concern or a gun control concern or a mix of the two.
I completely would say that without doing any research, but my guess would say that probably 70% of those shooting victims or crimes are committed by people not legally holding the right to have a gun. They're probably illegal guns, or they're committed by people with mental illnesses, and they are law-abiding, gun-holding citizens. So it's really not even a point that pertains to the Second Amendment, and should we try to change it and take guns out of people's hands because the law-abiding citizens are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So yes, it is a gun control issue, and also it is a mental health issue. Healthcare and mental health care needs to be completely overhauled so people have access to it. There's no stigma attached to it. People can afford it. All of those things. It is a social issue. There's a situation that scares me, which is that the government, the police, the military has all the force. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Because the balance of power has to be kept somehow.
Yeah.
2, I think legislating gun control is a problem for privacy and individual rights.
Next, I asked them if they thought that having a two-party system contributed to the divide.
It's just I think it's part of human nature growing up that you've been told what to do for 16 years and you're just waiting to get out of the house. Those people are just waiting to get away from their parents' authority and venture out on their own. And so there's always that rebellious nature to growing up that takes you away from traditional values and perhaps what you were raised with and those conservative ideals, and you want to stretch the country and make it something more of your own.
The two-party system is not at fault, and it also isn't the solution. I mean, sure, change, fine.
Yeah.
And maybe the two-party system has run its course and we need to do something different. I don't think that, yes, the two-party system is creating problems, but another formation would create other problems.
Lastly, I asked them if they thought that both parties would eventually mend their relationship.
I think in a shorter time period trend, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as people take time to talk to each other and get down to the bottom part of the issues and see where do they really differ, and if there's some better way to do it, if not at the federal level, at the local level, and so we can achieve win-win situations.
There have always been cycles of this
Divide.
kind of
Yep.
animosity between parties, and it's cyclical, right? And that happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised. I am discouraged because I think it does do damage, and I also have hope in the cycle.
And that we can respect each other and allow each other to have their own positions, but we can find compromise positions that will lead us together as a country once again.
So in conclusion, I wanted to do this documentary to hear both sides of each argument, but not in a debate setting. I think it worked well. Interestingly enough, they gave similar answers to quite a few questions. But most importantly, they both hope and think that the relationship between both parties will improve over time. And I am Lucas Rivera, and this is Two Sides.